Next, I'm going to show you how to extract a dynamic compound shape in order to create a more static compound path. And when I say more static, well, you'll see what I mean. They're not entirely static. Now, we've seen examples of compound paths previously inside of this series, but I want you to have a clear sense of what's going on. So I've created yet another sample file for you. It's called very simply 8.ai, found once again inside of the 10 Pathfinder folder. And notice what we have here. If I go ahead and twirl open the 8 layer right there, we've got a couple of red paths, which represent the outside edges of this numeral 8. And then we have these 2 white circles, which represent the inside edges. Now, combining the red shapes is a simple matter of applying the unite operation. I'll just go ahead and press the V key in order to switch to the black arrow tool. I'll partially marquee these 2 shapes like so. And then I'll go up to the Pathfinder panel, and I'll just click on unite. We don't need to combine them into a compound shape in this case. A single path outline is just fine. And notice it's not a compound path. It's just a single path because there's no little paths cutting holes in big paths or anything along those lines. Next, I want to go ahead and turn the 2 white circles into holes. Now, you may wonder why, because after all, we're already seeing these white circles against a white background, so everything's working out just fine. But what if we were to introduce a new background? And in fact, I have a very simple background inside of this illustration. If you turn it on, not much going on, just 3 stripes there. But it's a giveaway that these are white circles, not holes inside the center of the 8. So what do? Well, I'm going to go ahead and shift-click on the meatballs associated with those 2 circles. So in other words, all 3 shapes on the 8 layer are selected. And then one thing I could do is I could click on minus front, because the minus front Pathfinder operation goes ahead and subtracts everything but the rearmost path from the rearmost path. So there's just one path that's being cut into. The other paths are doing the cutting. So that works out beautifully. It does exactly what I want it to. In fact, notice that we now have a compound path because 2 of the shapes are cutting holes into the larger shape. But let's say I want to move the inner circles around a little bit. I could do so, by the way, by pressing the A key to switch to the wide arrow tool. And the reason I'm doing that, as opposed to meatballing items here inside the layers panel, is because you can't dig into a compound path in this panel. Go ahead and click off the 8, then Alt or Option click on one of these inner circles, Shift Alt or Shift Option click on the other one, and then drag them to a new location. And notice that we don't get a subtract effect. We don't get that typical minus front effect that we got when we were working with Ringo or the fin or any of those items there inside the compound shape. Instead, what we really get is an exclude effect, because where the paths overlap, that's transparent. Where they don't overlap, we see opacity. Just want you to notice that. Anyway, I want you also to see another way to work here. I'm going to press Control Z a couple of times in a row. That would be Command Z a couple of times on a Mac. And I'll show you another way to generate a compound path here inside of Illustrator. This is the old school way, by the way. And it's the thing to do in case, for whatever reason, you can't get minus front to work. You go up here to the Object menu. You choose the Compound Path command way here at the bottom of the menu, and then you choose Make. And notice its keyboard shortcut, Control-8 or Command-8 on the Mac. The reason being that 8 is the consummate compound path. It's a big shape with 2 holes inside of it. So go ahead and choose that command. You get exactly the same effect. You get a compound path, just like we saw before. And if I was to Alt marquee or Option marquee these 2 inner shapes and move them to a different location like so, you would see that we're creating an exclusion effect. Now, that's what I meant about compound paths being somewhat dynamic. You can go ahead and move the holes with respect to the larger outer shapes if you want to. However, they're not nearly as dynamic as a compound shape. And I'm going to show you the difference between compound shapes and compound paths and how to switch back and forth between them in the next exercise.